everyone. It's Brian from Your Paranormal 101, which means we're teaching people how to get started on their paranormal adventure. Today we're going to be talking about the itinerary, and I know a lot of people say that when they do the approach to ghost hunting or paranormal investigations, that they like to do the more relaxed approach, which I have surprisingly done a ton of lately. But traditionally, when we have a traditional team setup and we use a more structured approach, opening up an investigation, we'll make an entire itinerary, from making sure that we do our protection prayer, that we do different rotations, and we basically spread the teams out enough where there's enough space so there's no noise contamination between the two teams' evidence. So let me go ahead and give you an example of two different itineraries. One for a relaxed approach, which is, it's more on the whim or more raw, and then we can go into my favorite, which is a more structured approach where people have different roles and everything's all structured out. So if you had a relaxed approach, say you went into a location and you didn't know what kind of different levels there were, say you're going to a location, I don't know if we're allowed to investigate the basement or the attic, so this is the best example. We went to a location 2 weeks ago. We didn't know what levels that we were gonna have access to. We knew there was a basement, the first floor, a second floor, and an attic area. And we might be able to go outside. And there were 8 people allowed. So what we did was, there were 8 people, and the relaxed approach here was anyone could be whatever role they wanted. If someone was feeling that they were going to be the photographer, for example, they were. And the teams were literally drawn out of a hat. So completely raw, completely random, and it was almost like the spur of the moment kind of thing. But what we had was, the stipulations were that there could only be 8 people. And we only had 4 hours of investigating. So what we did was a 30-minute tour, and then a minute or two for a nice protection prayer. We had 4 different rotations, each 30 minutes per rotation, and then we had time for solo runs and duo runs, cleanup, and the protection prayer. And on the itinerary, we met at Tina's house. So what we did was, the investigation started at, I think 9. Yeah, it started at 9. So we had people getting to Tina's house at 6 p.m. There was a slot for a departure at, say, like 8:15, 8:20. We got to the location by 9, and then we did our tour. During the tour, and all we had was rotation 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course we would have the opposite for the teams. During the tour, I was literally taking notes, and the tour guide said, okay, you can investigate the basement, first floor, second floor, the attic, here's some history. I literally made the itinerary on the spot. It was actually crazy, because I knew there was a basement first, second, and attic. What I did was, I had Team Delta and I had Team Echo, which is just 2 different team names. I had one start on the first floor, and one start in the attic, and then I just moved them up. So literally, I always had one floor in between each team. But I put it together just like that on the spot. And it doesn't take, but I had structure to the itinerary. I knew that we only had 4 hours, including a tour. I knew it was important because this is a very special location to us, and I wanted all 8 of us to experience every little bit of it. So making sure that each team member had at least 30 minutes on each floor to experience the entire location. That's what's important. That's what makes me feel good, that these people got to paranormal investigate every bit of the location, and they can choose their favorite spots for the duo runs or solo runs. So that's an example of just a relaxed approach. A more structured approach, the itinerary would also include the breakdown of the teams. For example, we have 10 people and we're going into Madison Seminary. And for Madison Seminary, I know that there's like a right wing and a left wing, there's a bottom area, and then there's a top area, all right? And so what I did was, basically, I had teams here, 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 here. And basically rotation 1, 2, 3, 4. And wherever the other team was, there was enough distance between the wings, and they were literally, if someone was on the top level, someone was on the opposite wing on the bottom level. And that was way too much space for any noise contamination to be there. That's exactly what we want. But also, I had the team breakdown. So Team Delta, they had a photographer, an EVP tech, a recorder, a camera operator, and a static tech already on the itinerary. So people knew going into the investigation what was going on. But the same structure held. It had teams beforehand, so they knew who was on what team. So on the car ride to Madison, they can get to know each other if they don't know each other too well, or they could just, hey, you're the photographer, right? I was that role last time. This is how the photo camera works if you don't know. That kind of conversation, that kind of camaraderie. And then, honestly, it was so brilliant. All the roles were there. Everyone knew. So the static techs knew where to set up the static equipment, everything down to a T. And then after that, everyone had opportunities for duo runs, solo runs. It's all in there, to a writing in the itinerary to make sure that you take a group photo, to do protection prayers before and after if that's, part of your process. It's wonderful. So itineraries, there is quite a stigma there saying, well, you should go in raw, you should do this, you should do that. My counter argument is you can still go in raw. You can still do it on a whim, but having some structure to it allows every team member on your team to experience every bit of that location. That's more important than going in, just on a whim or not a lot of pressure. As a team leader, you should make sure that you have some sort of itinerary to follow to make sure that every team member experiences the most they can and every aspect of that location. Going on paranormal investigations is literally a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And sometimes that location that you just put on, say Madison Seminary, that's the only time that individual is going to go there. You want to make sure that they experience everything. That's why itineraries are so important. So that was Paranormal 101. Maybe, you're just getting into paranormal investigating. Maybe you're starting a group. Do I need to make itineraries? You definitely should. Or maybe you're tagging along on an investigation and they have an itinerary and you say, why do paranormal teams have itineraries in the first place? This is why. You want to experience the most out of each location. And they don't have to be super structured. But you want to make sure their goal is to spread the teams apart. You don't want to be doing an EVP session and hearing Sean yelling from the basement. It's not the goal here. The goal is if you hear some kind of, language being spoken or, words, being shouted, you want to know that it's not the other team, that you are experiencing something paranormal. That's the whole goal. That is literally the goal. Itineraries are so important. That was Paranormal 101. Everyone have a fantastic Tuesday.